right, it looks like we're up and running over on YouTube, so we'll get started here. Hello, everybody, and welcome. My name is Matt. I am the owner of the virtual Midwest Concussion Clinic, and today the Midwest Concussion Clinic monthly lunch and learn for the month of February is titled The Power of Sleep After a Brain Injury. The whole goal today is we're going to give you some basic overviews on how important sleep really is to the healing process. We're also going to sit down and talk about ways that we can help improve our sleep quality overall, and spend a lot of time talking about ways that everybody can improve their sleep, not just those that are dealing with brain injury recovery. So like I talked about at the very beginning, if you guys ever have any questions, feel free to reach out on our social media channels. You can leave a comment here on YouTube. You can send me a message on TikTok or Instagram. I will answer any questions that you have. If I don't answer it during the live stream, just know I will answer it for you and probably make a video about it, because that's kind of how I work with my social media accounts. Okay. Without further ado, the whole goals for today's presentation, we're going to go through and we're going to talk about why sleep is important, why it's essential to the brain, especially after injury, but in general, why it's important for the brain. We're going to talk about the role of sleep on cognitive performance and changes in symptoms. We're going to talk about the importance of supplements and sleep routines when it comes to brain injury recovery. And finally, we're going to talk about practical strategies to improve sleep quality. Again, that's where we're going to spend a majority of the time today, because I want to make sure that you guys have a lot to take away from our conversation about this topic, because sleep is the #1 performance enhancing drug in the world. You're going to hear me talk about that a lot during the presentation today, but that is the whole goal is to make sure that you get some practical takeaways that you can implement during your day-to-day routine, even if you're not dealing with brain injury recovery. Okay, so looking at our first topic here. So the big picture is, why is sleep essential to the brain injury recovery? When we start talking about sleep, sleep is not just rest. It's not a chance for you to go lay down in bed. It's not a chance for you to sit here and say, okay, I want to completely shut down. Sleep is recovery. It's where the brain goes and kind of how the brain heals and navigates through the brain injury recovery in general. It's not just you getting a chance to physically sit down and shut down. It's a chance for your brain to repair cellular damage, control inflammation, and then the primary reason is to regulate your central nervous system. So when we're talking about cellular repair during sleep after a brain injury, the idea behind it is, when we sleep, the body is able to repair damaged neurons. And we're not just talking about recreating neural connections like we do during therapy. We're talking about getting a chance to actually create or repair the damage that occurs at the molecular and cellular levels. So when we talk about, the idea behind repairing cell damage after we sleep, it's the idea that we're able to offload the stress that happens after the injury occurs itself. So sleep is very important for repairing damaged tissues and making sure that we're doing everything that we can to optimize the brain for overall recovery when it comes to the oxidative injury or the cellular injury that we have overall. When we control inflammation, brain injuries are an inflammatory issue, right? So when we start talking about what concussions are, for those of you that are new here and have never heard me talk about it, structurally, in the big picture, the brain looks fine. Electrically, it's a communication problem. So it's not necessarily a structural problem, even though we just talked about the cell damage that occurs. Microscopically, there is damage that occurs after a brain injury, but if I were to just take a picture of your brain with a traditional scan, nothing is going to show up on those CT scans, X-rays, MRIs. So when we start looking at the idea behind inflammation control, or after brain injury, why sleep is important, is we have to control neuroinflammation. The biggest difference between neuroinflammation and I hurt my knee and my knee is swollen is the idea behind the body is actually swelling. So the brain goes into a fight or flight response, gets a big push to essentially retain water, because your body is trying to prioritize survival. So it wants to make sure that it has water to carry out all your cellular functions. So the body will actually swell. When we talk about the inflammatory process, when cells are damaged or when inflammation occurs, there's a lot more byproducts of waste that are being thrown out of the cells. Again, we're not going to get deep into molecular biology because between you and me, that's not my specialty. I can explain it to you in simple ways, and that's kind of what I prioritize with working with patients. Is I just need you to understand that when the cells are injured, there's an excess amount of waste products that are being thrown out into the bloodstream, into what's called the blood-brain barrier, which is where all the nutrients and byproducts that the brain uses to function are flushed in and out of the brain area itself. So when we talk about clearing inflammation and clearing waste, it's the time that the brain uses to essentially take those byproducts out and flush them out of that blood-brain barrier. When the brain is hurt, there is an overactivation of our immune system. So essentially what happens is the body feels that it's attacked. When we're in a fight or flight response, or when we're stuck in a fight or flight response, it is a really, really difficult situation for the body because it feels like it's being attacked all day, all night. So there's an overactivation of our immune response. That's why it's easier to get sick after a brain injury, especially when you're dealing in your acute side of brain injury recovery. It's easier for the body to get sick because the system is essentially focusing on healing the brain injury. There's a heightened or elevated immune response, and sleep is how we reduce that immune response. It's how we essentially shut down things that are non-essential to the body and let the brain do what it's supposed to do to heal. So when we sit here and look at the idea behind clearing inflammatory waste or reducing the overall immune system activation, that's how we support cellular healing. So we can talk about symptom reduction, we can talk about getting back to your normal selves, but at the end of the day, we have to support cellular healing and neuron reconnection to ensure that the brain injury heals the proper way that it's supposed to. And finally, the third aspect of the second aspect of what we're going to talk about is the role of sleep on cognitive performance and what happens to symptom changes when we essentially sleep too much, don't sleep enough, have a high quality or high quantity of sleep. So sleep is key in regulating cognition. And what I mean by cognition is the brain's ability to perform day-to-day routine tasks, pay attention, remember things, learn new information. The whole goal of sleep is that we're able to regulate that cognition performance. When we sleep really well, we're able to feel better mentally and physically, right? So if you think about not even brain injury recovery, if you've never had a brain injury before and you're just scrolling through social media and see a random guy talking to you about sleep, we start looking at the importance that sleep has on our ability to think and process. So when we look at brain injury recovery, there's a heightened chance that we have a deficit in our cognitive performance. I have yet to meet anybody who doesn't report some form of feeling slowed down mentally during concussion recovery. It's very realistic, it is very real, and it is something that a majority of patients will deal with during their concussion recovery. Sleep is how we regulate that, how we improve that. One of the challenges post-brain injuries, we don't sleep very well, or we're sleeping too much too often. It's kind of a disconnect, or it's kind of a fight between sleeping too much, not sleeping enough, not getting a good quality of sleep, and that's something that we'll talk about here in a little bit. But when we talk about regulating the cognition or regulating our cognitive performance, sleep boosts memory, improves our energy expenditure, and enhances focus. But not only does it do that, it also will take care of our ability to essentially endure cognitive function. So we're able to function for a longer period of time. We're able to do more during our day. And that's generally why, as you start to get back into your normal routines, one of the hardest things to get away from is the cognitive performance, the mental fogginess, the difficulty with comprehension, the ability to do 2 or 3 things at the same time, where normally I used to be able to do these things. Now I really struggle with this. And a lot of the ways that we can boost that performance is by improving sleep quality. So when we look at the idea behind sleeping too much or sleeping enough, it brings up the concept of sleep debt. If you started to follow me this week, you started to see me tease that we're going to talk about sleep debt during today's conversation. And the idea behind sleep debt is that the brain has a set amount of time that it wants to sleep. And if we don't get that sleep, that's why generally you're told 8 hours a day. There's varying research on where that 8 hours a day comes from, but the golden rule is 8 hours a day of sleep is what the brain really needs. And if we don't get that time of sleep, we will essentially affect what's called sleep debt. The brain will remember that we don't have enough time, or we didn't get enough sleep to restore our immune system, to calm our tissue damage down, to repair things. And essentially it will make you make up that debt at some point. Healthy people, we've all had issues where we don't get a good night's sleep. And then the next night we come home and it's like, man, I am just going to go to bed early tonight. I'm going to get my sleep and I'm going to wake up tomorrow feeling like $1,000,000. Now imagine that you have that sleep debt where you didn't sleep at all or you didn't sleep very well the previous night and all you want to do is lay down to go to sleep and it's like, man, I can't wait to make up all this sleep, but yet you still don't sleep and you don't sleep and you don't sleep. That's the idea or the concept of sleep debt. Eventually we have to pay that debt back. But what happens when we stack sleep debt is it actually increases the strain on our cognitive ability. So as sleep debt goes up, cognitive performance goes down. So the less sleep that we get, the less we're able to essentially perform cognitively. Our memory goes down, our reaction time and response times go down, and we struggle with the ability to think and process. So when we start looking at sleep debt and how it affects our cognition, it also will lead to physical symptoms, right? So the more sleep debt we have, the harder it is for the body to function. We get higher headaches, more dizziness, more nausea, and then we pair that with the altered mental fogginess, the difficulty with concentrating, retention, difficulty with paying attention or focusing on information, and that will lead to a reduced endurance that we have mentally. Think of the idea that I talk about with patients is that think about trying to walk through water. If I try to walk through waist deep water, it's a lot harder than if I'm just trying to walk on land. If I'm just walking on land, yeah, I can walk for a long time. But if you put me in waist deep water, I'm going to get tired very quickly. Brain injuries is you're like trying to walk through waist deep mud. It's terrible. It's really hard to navigate through that. So the more we have problems with cognitive endurance, the more we have problems with attention and focus and dual tasking, the more we try to push through that, the harder it is for the brain to work. The harder it is for the brain to work, the more sleep we need. The less sleep that we get, the more the brain gets stressed, the more oxidative stress goes up, we delay brain injury recovery. It's a vicious cycle that happens. We don't sleep well. Cognitively, we don't feel well. When we don't feel well cognitively, we continue to push because things are harder. When things get harder, we get more stressed. When we get more stressed, symptoms go up. When symptoms go up, recovery takes longer. It's a vicious circle over and over and over again that we have to find a way to break that cycle. And when we talk about breaking the cycle, and we had talked a little bit about sleep debt and the idea behind attention and focus, sleep will help you recharge your cognitive batteries. So if we look at the idea behind the sleep is a way of resetting and recharging, and you're going to see that here in a minute. It's the idea behind the brain gets a chance to shut down and the body gets a chance to catch up without all of the external stress being put on it. When the body's in a fight or flight response, it's not able to shut down. The easiest way to describe it is your brain gets stuck in kind of a caveman or cavewoman situation. I'm asleep in a cave, but there's been a bear floating around this cave, and now I need to be alert just in case the bear comes in and tries to eat me. Okay, now the difference is the bear is a brain injury that brain can't shut off very easily. So now any move that happens in the room, any change in noise, any change in environmental stimulus, and then all of a sudden I can't sleep or I wake up. It's a difficult thing to kind of navigate through your concussion recovery because when we don't have that restorative sleep, we don't get a chance to recharge our batteries. Physical fatigue and cognitive fatigue are two totally different things. When we talk about physical fatigue, man, I'm tired, but I can do this. Yeah, I had a busy day and I just want to sit here on the couch, but I can get up and I can go. The idea behind cognitive fatigue or neurofatigue is essentially a bug on a windshield. I'm going and I'm doing okay, and then by the end of the day, all of a sudden I can't handle this anymore. I'm dizzy, I'm nauseous, I'm lightheaded. That increase in cognitive fatigue or that increase in emotional dysregulation will lead to a decrease in sleep availability and will make it so we're actually more challenged to sleep in the big picture. And when we start looking at, sorry, my camera's tended to just completely shut off there, so just trying to reset some things here. All right, so when we look at the idea behind our sleep quality versus sleep quantity, in a perfect world, we're all sleeping a 10 out of 10 hours a night. Everything's great, fantastic, wonderful. Everybody sleeps the best. And when we look at countries around the world that prioritize sleep, they tend to be healthier than those here that do not prioritize sleep. So when we look at the idea behind sleep quality versus sleep quantity, again, quantity is the duration of time that you're spent asleep. Quality is how well you feel like you've slept. That quantity is the important side when it comes to energy production, but the quality is what actually will drive your recovery. So when we talk about sleep quantity, right, that duration of sleep, being asleep doesn't necessarily mean that you're getting good quality rest. Early on in brain injury recovery, most people will talk about, I'm tired all the time and all I do is lay around and sleep. And then I wake up and feel like, man, I didn't sleep at all. It's because the brain is trying to restore energy and it's trying to help with the energy production. And the easiest way to do that is to get you to sleep. But if the brain is not in a comfortable state or a calm environment, it does not sleep as well. And now all of a sudden we run into restlessness. We're awake for an hour, we're down for 2 hours, we're up for 15 minutes, we're down for another hour. There's a lot of up and down that happens during that sleep, that sleep-wake routine that causes issues. So when we look at the low quality of sleep, the worse that we're sleeping overall will tend to lead to an increase in cognitive function dysfunction, right? An increase in mental fogginess and brain fog, a decrease in the ability to handle endurance, and we essentially will cognitively fatigue faster if we're getting a low quality of sleep. Okay. Again, ideal situation is that we're getting a high quality and a high quantity, but that's not realistic for a lot of people early on. So let's talk about the importance of our sleep supplements or importance of sleep routines. Naturally, when the brain is healthy, we really struggle with, I'm not really sure what's going on here. Sorry, TikTok is new to me and I don't necessarily understand what's happening. So my apologies. But when we start looking at the idea of importance of maintaining sleep routines and supplements, the brain needs help during brain injury recovery to regulate our sleep. One of the easiest ways and natural ways that we can help the brain during our brain injury recovery is the idea behind a sleep routine. We want to establish a sleep routine, but for some people, sleep routines aren't enough, and we need to support the brain with supplements to help us regulate our sleep-wake cycle. So when we talk about the idea behind sleep routines, we want to make it as easy and consistent for the brain as possible to navigate through our sleep. Okay, one of the easiest ways to do that, sleep, is to essentially keep your sleep-wake cycles consistent, right? We want to balance when we're going to bed and when we're waking up, and we want to keep it as consistent as possible every day. When we balance a sleep routine, the idea behind it is we're helping the brain kind of go through and repair the circadian rhythm. The circadian rhythm is your sleep-wake cycle, your ability to wake up and go to sleep. Okay, so when we look at trying to establish a sleep routine, it's not just all of a sudden I'm going to sit here and say, all right, well, I went from having a really busy day to now it's time to go to bed and I'm going to go to bed. We have to essentially establish a wind down routine to try to help the beginning process of our sleep routines. A good wind down routine, we're going to talk about establishing a sleep routine at the end, but a good wind down routine for people is that we want to start to essentially an hour before our primary bedtime, we want to put electronics away. We want to start our bedtime routine of, washing our face, taking a shower, all of that stuff to help us kind of navigate through our brain injury recovery. So when we look at it, that wind down routine is what actually triggers the brain to get tired, because we need to start helping the brain in all ways, shape, or form get ready for our sleep routine. Okay, when the brain is healthy, the brain makes up for a lot of bad habits that we as Americans tend to do to help, kind of fill the gap in sleeping. Not that I do this or that you guys ever do this, but the idea behind doom scrolling, I'm going to lay here and stare at my phone until my phone falls on my face and it's like, oh man, I was asleep. Yeah, I should probably lay down and go to bed now. That's not ideal for the brain to help sleep. What happens when the brain's healthy is it can help with that negative routine, or it can help kind of fight that bad habit that we have, and it can help you sleep better. Well, when the brain injury occurs and we don't have the excess energy available, we're not able to ignore the bad habits that most of us have when it comes to establishing proper sleep hygiene or a sleep routine. And we'll talk about that during the practical strategies because that's one of the key takeaways for today. Some common supplements that people can take to help with sleep routines, okay? They are a useful tool, but they're also not the end all be all. They are one tool to add to our sleep routine. So when we look at the primary types of supplements that are out there, we have magnesium, particularly magnesium L-threonate, that helps calm our central nervous system. It helps make us sleepy in general. It also helps with headaches and stress. Omega-3s can help with the calmness and control neuroinflammation that can help keep our brain in an agitated state. And then melatonin. Melatonin is one of those things that people will, depending on where you search on the internet, you're going to get various opinions on melatonin long-term and what it does to natural melatonin production with supplementing melatonin. But when we look at brain injury recovery, during your brain injury recovery process, supplementing with melatonin is really, really beneficial. So when we start looking at a basic step to helping you, anybody who's out there struggling to sleep, trying to help regulate the sleep routine, I will always recommend somebody starts taking melatonin, 5 milligrams a night. It doesn't have to be a lot, but as long as they're not allergic to it, or there are some people out there that have the opposite effect when they take melatonin that it makes them wake up. Those are kind of the basic 3 supplements that we start with to help regulate our sleep-wake cycles. Now, there are other things that we'll do that we'll talk about during the practical strategies that can help that. If it's like, hey, Matt, I really don't want to start taking melatonin because I don't like how I feel afterwards, or we have problems with that. Just know that, all of these, we're looking at progress versus perfection. So if you're somebody who's struggling with your sleep-wake routines or struggling to sleep in general, whether you have a brain injury or not, the idea behind doing a little bit at a time, one step at a time, can really help. If you're trying to be perfect every day, it's really hard to maintain that. But the idea behind progress over perfection is something that most people need to understand during brain injury recovery. Ideally, I want you to be perfect every day, but that's not realistic. Nobody's perfect all the time. So when we look at the idea behind that perfection, it's if I don't take it, I'm not going to sleep at all. That's not the case. So we want to make sure that we're trying our best to do what we can. But if you're, hey, I forgot melatonin and I'm not tired today, now we know that, hey, look, okay, maybe melatonin is really doing a lot for our sleep injury or our brain injury recovery in general. Light exposure will actually help us regulate our sleep-wake cycle. We biologically, we are all designed to wake up when the sun comes up and go down when the sun goes down. That's the way the human body was biologically designed. Natural sunlight exposure would trigger melatonin production. So the idea behind light exposure is that it improves our energy and our mood regulation, but it also helps reinforce that circadian rhythm, that sleep-wake cycle. To kind of dig in a little bit more, the idea behind sunlight exposure. If I can get direct sunlight exposure within the first hour of me waking up, it will trigger my body to naturally produce melatonin 12 to 13 hours after initial sunlight exposure. Now, if you're anything like Matt, here in the Midwest, we have problems with not getting sunlight some days, especially during the wintertime. And that's why most people in the Midwest, we will take a vitamin D supplement or a melatonin supplement to help us regulate our sleep-wake cycle. So it's like, hey, Matt, I don't know what to do to help get sunlight exposure because it's been cloudy for 4 days. Even though it's cloudy, there is still light outside. Getting outside and standing outside in the grass is a prime example. If it's negative 30-degree wind chill and you're not going to go outside and stand outside, standing by your windows, getting that direct sunlight exposure, or utilizing what are called happy lamps, artificial sun lamps. You can buy cheap ones on Amazon for $14. If we're looking at doing everything we can to help improve mood, fight depression, help regulate our sleep-wake cycles and our energy production, sunlight exposure is one of those free options for everybody that most people tend to overlook in the big picture. So this is the primary reason we're here today. We're going to talk about practical strategies to improve sleep. And when I talk about these practical strategies, some of these may not work for you. Okay. If you're trying these and you're like, man, that random person on TikTok told me to do this and I can't sleep, I hate that guy, reach out. These are the ones that make me seem the least insane when I talk about them. There are tons of ways to help get you to sleep. When we're going through these, the idea behind them is we're trying to calm your central nervous system. One of the people that I follow that I really, really respect in the brain injury world, her name's Natasha Wilch. Last week, she spent a lot of time talking about that central nervous system regulation is not optional. It is something that it's an outcome that we're trying to get. I can't force you to calm down. I can't force your brain to be in a calm environment. But what I can do is as many different things as we can to eliminate externals. I talk with patients a lot. If the brain does not feel comfortable, none of this matters. Nothing that we're going to do on the rehab perspective is going to work if the brain does not feel comfortable. It's why I have built the clinic around education and seeing people and treating people where they are and not making them come into an office and sit in a bright room with lights that makes everybody nervous. I spent a year treating people out of an old emergency room. You want to talk about uncommon places to treat brain injuries? There's nothing more relaxing than an emergency room setting where bells and alarms are going off all the time. It was really difficult to do. We would sit here and talk about, all right, let's calm you down. And then all of a sudden a fire alarm would go off. Or we'd have a code blue that happened on the other side of our place where we were treating. It's not a conducive environment for calm. So when we branched off into the virtual Midwest Concussion Clinic, I can do these techniques and work with people in the comfort of their own homes, helping their brain get more comfortable because they're in an environment that they feel safe. So when we start looking at practical strategies, sleep will vary or change throughout concussion recovery. One of the hardest cycles that everybody deals with in concussions at some point or another is the idea behind some days I sleep really well, other days I don't sleep at all. Some days I sleep 13 hours and sleep another 4 hours, and then other days all I want to do is I sleep and I can't sleep. Sleep will change. When we talk about the primary idea behind the long-term brain health and brain recovery is we want you to get to that high quality and high quantity of sleep. If the brain isn't comfortable in its environment, it's not going to have a high quality of sleep. So sleep quality increases, sleep duration increases, sleep duration decreases, sleep quality decreases. It's going to go up and down. And the idea is we're trying to be, consistent with what we're doing in terms of trying to support the brain any way we can to sleep during brain injury recovery in particular. Okay. The first one, establishing a sleep routine is a minimum. Anybody that's struggling with sleep, the minimum thing that you can do is go to bed at the same time and wake up at the same time every single day. When I start to look at the challenges of life doesn't stop. I went to bed at 10 yesterday. Great. Now I had kids that got sick and I couldn't be in bed by 10. I had practice this afternoon and I couldn't get home to do my homework, so I can't go to bed till 11 today. It's tough to keep your sleep routines the same. But sleep is not optional during brain injury recovery. We need to do everything we can to protect and prioritize our sleep-wake routines. When I talk about brain health and brain resiliency before injury, or going out and talking about what we can do to essentially improve brain health for the long term as we age, one of the things that we talk about is the idea behind a basic sleep-wake routine is something that can be challenging for people because I don't want to wake up at 7 o'clock on the weekend. I don't want to get up at 6 o'clock on Saturday when normally I don't have to be up because we got nothing going on this weekend. I can tell you, if you're anybody who's done anything consistently with their work routine, that if I have to wake up at 6 for work 5 days a week, guess what time I'm waking up on the weekend? My brain is going to wake up. And then eventually I can force myself to fall back asleep. That forcing yourself to fall back asleep on the weekends is sabotaging your sleep-wake cycle. So when we look at the bare minimum that we need to do to help improve sleep quality is establishing a sleep routine. Keep everything consistent with when we go to bed and when we wake up. A sleep routine, or good sleep hygiene is what it's referred to as sometimes, essentially is a way that we can essentially inform the brain that it's time to go to bed. In an ideal world, we dim all lights in our house by 50% when the sun goes down. 2 hours before bed, we put all electronics away, we eat our last meal, we drink our last drink. An hour before bed, we start a wind down routine that consists of our normal hygiene, right? Getting into a shower, washing our face, brushing our teeth, taking off our makeup, whatever it is. And then we slide into a bed that's anywhere from 60 to 64 degrees in a pitch black room, and we read a chapter of a book until we slowly drift off to sleep. That's the ideal sleep routine, according to science. That is not what most people do, but when we start looking at what we can do to establish a sleep routine is consistently put electronics away 2 hours before bed, eat our last meal 2 hours before bed, and start that wind down routine 60 to 90 minutes before bedtime. If there's anything that I can convince people who are struggling to sleep that they can do, it's like, hey, Matt, I'm not going to do everything that I can do to help improve my sleep quality. Put the electronics down. Turn the TV off. Listen to a podcast, listen to a radio, turn off the electronics. Go through and keep you essentially with old school, keep it all very low tech. Trying to eliminate the need for electronics at bedtime is a bare minimum to help you improve sleep quality. Aerobic exercise is critical for sleep regulation. Okay. The more you do during the day, the more energy that you burn, the less energy that you have at night. And we run into the ability to process that energy demand, and it helps us go to sleep. So big picture, the more physically active you can be throughout the day, the better sleep is going to go for you at night. The aerobic exercise is something that everybody should be doing during brain injury recovery. I know it's easy for me to sit here who feels okay with, a physical activity and say, hey, you need to go out and go exercise. We have to find something that you can do physically, aerobically, that can help your brain injury recovery, because exercise is medicine. Aerobic exercise is your best friend to helping regulate your sleep-wake cycle. The goal should be getting a minimum of 30 to 60 minutes of aerobic exercise on top of your normal day-to-day routines. So when we look at the big picture, the more physically active you can be without symptoms going up, the better. Now, if you're anybody who, like me, who I don't necessarily like to work out during the day, if I'm going to work out at all, it's going to be at night when it's my de-stress time. The idea behind exercising at night is we need to stop our exercise 3 to 4 hours before we start that wind down routine. After we exercise, what happens is oxidative stress goes up, heart rate goes up, blood pressure goes up. It's harder to regulate those symptoms in the big picture. So when we struggle with regulating those systems, it takes time for the body to naturally wind down after a workout. This is healthy. Okay. Now add the fact that the body struggles with autonomic regulation. Those time frames of recovery and heart rate variability will actually increase. So it takes longer for us to wind down. So when we're trying to establish an exercise routine, we want to ensure that any aerobic exercise that we're doing occurs 3 to 4 hours before our wind down routine starts. Journaling before bed is something else that we can do before we even try to lay down to support sleep quality. Something that is hard for people to understand is the idea that when the brain is injured, it does not offload stress very efficiently. When we're healthy, I had a really rough day. I came home, took a big deep breath in, maybe cried a little bit, vented to a friend. That's our way of offloading stress. Right now, when the brain is injured, it does not offload stress as efficiently or effectively. We have to do activities to help offload stress. One of the easiest ways that we can help offload oxidative stress or help offload stress in general is to journal before bed. When I look at somebody, especially if I've got somebody who's trapped in the cycle of I'm not sleeping at all, when I lay down, I know sleep's not going to go well, I will sit down and say, let's do 1 day of journaling to see how we do, and let's keep it very easy. My first steps into establishing a pre-bedtime routine for journaling is I want you to give me 3 positive things that happened during your day, 3 positive things that you like about yourself, and I want you to write them down. Put them down on the notes app of your phone, write them down on a piece of paper. Nobody ever has to read them. But right before bed, I want you to focus on the positive things. That's step number 1. If you're like, hey, Matt, not going to do that. I'm not going to focus on journaling. I don't journal. I don't write in my diary. I'm not doing that. I will tell you to do one thing, and it's to write down 3 things that you didn't like about your day. It can be as basic as you want. Today sucked, didn't sleep well, tripped over the cat. Like basic things. And then we're going to take that paper that you wrote them down on, and I want you to physically destroy it. Tear it up, crumble it up, throw it away, punt it across the room. If you're an adult and you're safe and you're doing things, comfortably, light it on fire, whatever you need to do there. The idea behind physically destroying something that's bothering us is a way for the brain to offload stress. So if I've got somebody who's stubborn and is like, hey, Matt, I'm not doing that at all, write down something that bothered you and tear it into a million pieces and throw it away. People will buy into that a little bit more effectively or a little bit more quickly than the idea behind, hey, write down 3 things that you like about yourself. Journaling is a powerful thing during brain injury recovery, and it's a way to help organize thoughts and offload stress in the big picture. Warm compresses over the eyes can be one of those unsung heroes when somebody is anxious, irritated, symptoms are high or overstimulated, or we're trying to trigger in the sleep-wake cycle. Okay, when we look at warm compresses, putting a hot washcloth over your eyes, wearing an eye mask, wearing a heated, a rice pack that you can just set over top of your eyes, warm compresses and compressions over the eyes help trigger in the body's repair and regenerate side of the brain, that rest and digest parasympathetic side of the brain that's active while we're sleeping. Temperature change is one of the easiest ways to trigger the body out of a fight or flight response. So when we look at trying to essentially calm the body down, heat is better than cold when it comes to sleep. If I have somebody who's struggling throughout the day, we'll tell them to put ice on their eyes or tell them to kind of put a cold washcloth over their face to help with energy and try to stimulate the central nervous system. But if I'm trying to shut down the sleep-wake cycle, and we'll learn about why in just a minute, the idea behind heating the body up or heating the eyes up is a perfect example on a basic strategy. It's like, hey, you're laying in bed. I wake up and I'm struggling to go back to sleep. I'm not getting out of bed no matter what you do. If I get out of bed, the monsters might get me. You start looking at why people will fight getting up out of bed in the middle of the night. I'm one of them. It's going to take a lot to get me to get up out of bed. Even if I can't sleep, I'm not getting out of bed unless I have to. Take your hands together. Rub them quickly. Get them warm. And then once they're warm, cup them over top of your eyes. A little bit of pressure over your eyes with those warm hands can help trigger in the same concept of getting up and getting a hot washcloth or heating up a rice pack to lay over top of my eyes. So I teased it a little bit, but the idea behind body temperature change is the way to calm the body down. To sleep, the body needs to cool itself down. Okay, when we talk about triggering in the repair and regenerate or the rest and digest parasympathetic system, what happens is your core body temperature will actually drop. One of the hardest things that the body does is struggle with regulating body temperature after a brain injury. It has to do with cortisol and stress hormones, has to do with thyroid hormones that are produced, and we struggle with regulating that body temperature. Well, in order for the brain to go into that high quality of sleep, the body needs to cool off. That's why an ideal sleep routine is you falling into a bed that's anywhere from 60 to 64 degrees, because the body will need to cool off. One of the easiest ways to cool the body off when it's time to sleep is to naturally warm the body up before we lay down. One of the easiest ways to naturally warm the body up is a warm shower. Taking a shower in that hour bedtime routine that we have, the body will be warmer, and how the body cools itself off is it will drop the core temperature to change the external temperatures, right? So core temperature will go down to get the body to cool down its skin. So we're helping aid the body to cool itself off by artificially warming you up before you lay down. An easy thing for people to do, warm feet is the key to a warm body. If I wear socks when I lay down to bed, I can take them off when it's time for me to go to bed, but essentially when I'm first getting in bed, keeping some socks on to keep my feet warm, and then as I'm getting ready, if I'm somebody who can't have anything touching my feet, I need my feet hanging out of the covers, or if you're anything like me, got to have the covers on my feet because the monsters are going to get me if the feet are out. Now I can sit here and have my socks on to keep me warm. Okay, so when we look at the idea behind core body temperature change, we want to artificially warm the body up so the body will cool itself off while we're sleeping. Same concept with rubbing your eyes and putting your warm hands or a hot washcloth over your eyes. We're artificially warming up the body so core temperature will drop. Now, we've done everything before we laid down in bed. We've done everything right throughout the day. These next couple tips and techniques are things that you can do during the night to help you fall asleep. They're things that you can do that if you wake up in the middle of the night can help you get back to sleep. And they're things that you can do if you're sleeping with a partner in the same room or same bed, and you can do them without disturbing somebody else. If you're anything like me, one of the weirdest things or the hardest things for me to do is try to wake anybody up. If I can't sleep, I don't want anybody else to know it. So one of the things that I will do when I am struggling to sleep is I will go through what I call extended nasal breathing. The concept of taking big deep breaths in through your nose and slowly exhaling through your mouth. Hey Matt, it's allergy season. Can't breathe through my nose. This isn't going to work for me. It doesn't matter if you're breathing in through your nose or exhaling through your mouth. The idea behind it is very basic. Inhales are shorter than exhales. Okay, so when we sit here and look at extended nasal breathing, I want to take a big deep breath in through my nose, push my belly button straight up into the ceiling, and then as I breathe out, I want to breathe out with controlled extended exhales. And the easiest ways to do controlled extended exhale is to breathe out through your mouth with pursed lips. So I'm breathing in, I'm breathing out. Over and over and over again to try to calm down our central nervous system. This is a tip and technique that I teach to every single person that I interact with in the brain injury space. If you're stressed, overwhelmed, irritated, symptoms are high, sit down, calm your central nervous system by a big deep breath in and a slow exhale out. People would be surprised at how powerful breathing really is. I know that sounds very weird, but breathing is one of those unsung heroes to reducing stress and anxiety. There are all different types of breathing techniques that we have to help control stress and irritation. So in the big picture, timing will vary. If you're sitting here saying, hey, Matt, I can't breathe in for 3 seconds and out for 4 seconds because I'm struggling, it doesn't matter. Breathe in for 2 seconds, breathe out for 3 seconds. The concept is breathing in for a short duration, breathing out for a longer duration. If you're getting lightheaded or if you're getting nauseous, breathing is causing problems. We need to distract you from your breathing techniques. And that's where rhythmic tapping comes into play. We're going to talk about rhythmic tapping in just a minute, but we can do different things to distract the body from our breathing difficulties. Box breathing. It's something that if you're anybody in the brain injury world or anybody who treats or deals with stress or anxiety, or you're in the athletic population and you're trying to get somebody to control their heart rate, box breathing is a concept that's familiar for most people. The idea behind box breathing, we breathe in for 4 seconds, we hold our breath for 4 seconds, we exhale for 4 seconds, we hold our breath for 4 seconds. Our box can be 2, 2, 2, 2. Our box can be 3s. It can be 5s. It can be 7s. The idea behind box breathing is that we want to make sure that everything stays consistent with our time. I will tell you, for most people that we're starting through the brain injury world, box breathing will make you lightheaded very, very, very quickly. That's why we go with the extended nasal breathing and we go with different things to help kind of ensure that you can handle box breathing or you can handle the difficulty with our belly breathing in the big picture. So box breathing is a technique, inhaling through your nose, exhaling through pursed lips. The whole concept stays the same, but we're breathing in a 4-4-4. So if I were going to do it with you here, I would sit here and take a big deep breath in for 4. Hold my breath. Exhale for 4. And hold my breath. And continuing to repeat that process over and over and over again. Segmented relaxation is a technique that I will recommend for everybody to pair with your belly breathing, your box breathing, your extended nasal breathing. And it's the idea behind breaking your body up in 4 parts. You've got your head, your shoulders, your butt and your hips, and your feet. The idea is as you inhale through your nose, push that ceiling. Exhale, I'm going to relax my head into the bed. And then I'm going to inhale, and as I exhale, I'm going to relax my shoulders. And then I'm going to inhale and relax my butt. As I exhale, inhale, relax my feet as I exhale. And the idea is we start top and progress down. We go head, shoulders, butt, feet. Head, shoulders, butt, feet. Each time I exhale, I'm focusing on that area in particular and feeling it get heavier and falling deeper into the bed. I breathe in, I exhale, and I relax. It is one of the most powerful visualization techniques that we can do to help with our sleep-wake cycles, to help us fall asleep and trigger in that circadian rhythm. If you're somebody who struggles with regulating breathing, if I start to focus on breathing, I get lightheaded, I get anxious, I feel like I can't breathe, or I feel like I'm not getting enough oxygen in, I feel like I'm panicking, tapping is a way that you can distract yourself. And by tapping, we can sit here and regulate naturally our breathing rhythms. Okay. If you've ever tried to watch somebody and figure out if they're sleeping or not, one of the easiest ways to tell if somebody is asleep or not is their belly will raise up and down. Belly breathing is the efficient way for the body to offload oxidative stress. When the body is in a comfortable position, we will belly breathe. Our belly will go out, our belly will go in. If you've been trained in any musical instrument or singing, you're taught how to belly breathe because it's how we sustain our airflows. It's how we sustain pitches and vocal ranges and instruments. It's how we effectively control respiration. When we're in a constant state of stress, we're in a high fight or flight response, the body is not calm, we will shallow chest breathe. Shoulders will go up and down, chest will go up and down, and breathing will be harder to control. So if we're looking at trying to regulate our sleep-wake cycle, that belly breathing concept is a way to do it. But if I struggle with trying to regulate my sleep breathing, I can go into rhythmic tapping. The idea behind rhythmic tapping is we try to keep everything calm and simple on our dominant side. As I breathe in, I'm going to tap my right index finger on my leg, cross my arms, cuddle up in the fetal position. As I breathe in, I'm going to tap my right index finger. And then as I breathe out, I'm going to let my hand sit still. And then as I breathe in, I'm going to tap my right index finger. And then as I breathe out, I keep my hand still. As that gets easier and you can feel yourself start to relax and anxiety goes down and you can feel the body start to calm itself down, we can add in different rhythms. Breathing in with the right hand, breathing out with the left hand. If I have somebody who we sit down and try to do any respiration control and they are dizzy, nauseous right away, we are going to go immediately into tapping during inhaling and tapping during exhaling. Slow, big, deep breaths in, trying to get 3 taps on the right hand as I breathe in. Slow exhales coming back out, trying to get 3 taps as I come back out. Slowing down and getting you to focus on tapping is a way to distract the body and help you regulate your breathing cycles by itself. When in doubt, blink it out. It's a phrase that I was taught when I started this journey about a decade ago. Is the eyelids are muscles just like anything else. If we can make the muscles tired, the eyes tired, you will start to feel sleepy. If I have somebody who's like, hey, Matt, I've tried everything and I can't do it. Well, okay, I want you to sit here and I want you to blink as fast as you can for 30 to 60 seconds. When you're done, you're going to keep your eyes closed and just sit there. The eye muscles will fatigue. When the eye muscles fatigue, they feel heavy. When they feel heavy, that's just like simulating pressure over top of your eyes. Okay? If I can get somebody who's really struggling, it's like, hey, Matt, I've tried everything and I can't sleep. I'm going to blink fast, and then I'm going to put a little bit of pressure over top of my eyes to help trigger in the body's natural circadian rhythm, to help improve that sleep-wake cycle and help kind of regulate that sleep process, that sleep cycle, for lack of a better word. Okay. Something that we can do. The idea behind counting sheep is a concept that's been around in all of our children's, novels, all of the wives' tales that we've heard growing up. Is you want to fall asleep, count sheep. The idea behind counting sheep is visualization. We're visualizing a task that's calm and happening over and over and over again. So if I've got somebody who's really struggling with sleep, especially somebody who's been diagnosed with insomnia or hypersomnia, if I've got somebody who's really, really struggling with sleep, the primary thing that we can do at the beginning of our sleep-wake cycle or the beginning of that bedtime routine is I want you to picture something that makes you calm. For some people, it's a nice beach. Other people, it's a calm forest. For me, it's a snow-covered cabin that we can sit here and look at and nice snow falling. That's my happy place. That's my comfortable place. So when we sit here and we look at trying to sleep, visualizing a comfortable, calm environment can help us trigger out of that fight or flight response. Triggering something that we feel is our happy place is a way to make the body feel safe. Some people cannot visualize after a brain injury. And if I have somebody who can't visualize after a brain injury, during that initial part of the bedtime routine, as we're starting that wind down routine, I'll tell them to go to YouTube, type in relaxing beach scene and put a beach scene up on the TV. Have the waves crashing in the background, using those things to help you visualize after a brain injury, to help you kind of navigate through that difficult time. Okay. Not everything is going to work for everybody. That's why you're getting a bunch of tools to put in your toolbox. The last one that I want to touch on is the idea behind noise frequencies. Most people will need some form of noise in their room. For a lot of people, it's a fan. I got a fan going. It helps keep the room calm. It helps keep it cool. But in the big picture, it's white noise. It's background noise to help you sleep. I get people that talk all the time. It's like, hey, Matt, I can't sleep without listening to my rain machine, or I can't sleep without, the crickets going in the background, or listening to thunderstorms. Well, the idea behind those noise machines or noise frequencies is they are helping to calm the brain. The challenge is when the brain is healthy, the combination of colors, sounds that happen with different frequencies, the combination of blue noise, green noise, brown noise that are all present during a ocean waves crashing onto a beach, some of those frequencies can irritate the brain. So when we look at trying to establish comfortable environments for sleeping, we can test which frequencies will irritate you and which frequencies that you find calming. It's something that I do with all of my patients at the very beginning of this process, is we will go through and actually do noise frequency testing if they report any difficulty sleeping at all, to find a way to help kind of drown out that background noise and help provide a calm environment to help them sleep. Again, sleep is the #1 performance enhancing drug in the world. We want to be better, funnier, smarter, better looking, more attractive, more athletic. Sleep. The problem with a brain injury is people do not sleep very well. We have to do things to calm your environment so the brain feels calm. You see them advertised a lot on YouTube. You can see them advertised a lot on Facebook or TV nowadays. The Calm app, every now and again, they did one for the Super Bowl. I don't know if it was this year or last year, but they did an ad for the Super Bowl that essentially put up green noise. And it was like, this is what happens when you're trying to fall asleep. This is calm and comfortable. It can be a powerful tool to help people sleep. But how do you know what tool or what noise frequency to use to help you sleep? Well, that's where I come in. I have a handout that will actually teach you how to test noise frequencies by using YouTube videos. I will send it to anybody who wants it free to help you establish your sleep-wake routine. All you got to do is you got to DM me frequency on any of my social medias. I'll shoot it to you in an email. I'll get it to you, I'll have you run through it, and I'll actually help you navigate through which noise frequencies are calming for you, which ones are irritating for you, and how you can use them in the big picture to help improve sleep quality. At the end of the day, I am put on this earth to help people. And my concept of helping people is I've got knowledge and information that I will give to you to help you navigate through your brain injury recovery. And if you need help, I'm here to help you. Again, that's the end of the February Midwest Concussion Clinic monthly lunch and learn. The whole idea of the power of sleep after brain injury. Yeah, we got some educational background today, but the whole goal of today was to give you practical strategies to improve sleep quality, whether you're somebody who's struggling with sleep or somebody who's dealing with brain injury navigation and you need those practical techniques to help improve your sleep. Hopefully we got a chance to learn why sleep's important, sleep's effect on cognitive and symptom production, the importance of sleep routines and supplements to help guide sleep and help create a sleep-wake cycle. And at the end, we had those practical strategies. For those of you that are newer, just stopping in, my name is Matt. I'm the owner of the virtual Midwest Concussion Clinic. Every third Wednesday of the month at 12 p.m. Eastern here on TikTok and YouTube Live, I will go through and I will put together a webinar to discuss different things with patients. If you're somebody who's got a question about something or wants to learn more information or essentially just wants answers to questions that you might have during your own brain injury recovery, or you're helping somebody navigate through, please reach out and DM me on any of our social media accounts. I am very, very reachable. At the end of the day, I want to help everybody. And one of the easiest ways I can help is to give and share my information that I have. They're up on the screen, or some of our recent ones that we've gone through. They're up there on our YouTube channel. All the replays are up there. If you've got a topic that you'd like to see done, please reach out. The reason we went through and did sleep again this time around was I've had people ask me, hey, how do I sleep better after a concussion? So, hey, guess what? If you've got a question, so does somebody else. I'll put it together in a webinar and we'll go through it that way. But if you ever want to learn more, you can follow me on any of my social media accounts. So I'm at MW Concussion on Twitter and X, Facebook, Midwest Concussion Clinic on YouTube, at MW Concussion on TikTok and Instagram. Feel free to answer or ask any questions that you guys might have, whether it's about today or another topic. I will gladly answer it because, again, we're all navigating through this together. The idea behind my clinic is we've got people who are feeling unseen, feeling invisible in their invisible injury recovery, and my whole goal is to make them visible again. So thank you so much for tuning in. I really appreciate it. I hope you guys all have a great rest of your day. And as always, be nice to each other. We don't know what anybody else is going through. Be nice.